Flight boss, bitch. For sure. You're now listening to the Mind of an Terry Smooth. I'm the Archangel URIEL, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And I want to talk about how to deal with fear. Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of things in this world that we let overtake us based upon the influence of that energy, based upon us not being able to grab it, not being able to point to it or look at it, not being able to punch it in its face, not being able to know what we are experiencing or what we are enduring at the moment to know what to do and what not to do. You know what I'm saying? So for the most part, when we start to create thought forms and feelings in areas that we are unexperienced in the esoteric realm, it plays out as unfamiliarity, and it trickles down into uncomfortability, and then it trickles down into fear, aka fear of the unknown. So for the most part, once we start to talk about these things that we can't actually grab, but these are our thought forms and our feelings, and when these things are in areas that they feel alone, feel untaken care of, feel unsecure, feel vulnerable, as a spirit, when you travel to that space, you feel naked in that space because you have no thought form or feeling, aka no light as a cloth to protect you or shield you from anything that's going on within that space. And that space develops as a circumstance that you're sitting in, being a spirit, sitting in that situation. So for the most part, when you're swimming in that wheel, those waters that you're unexperienced, you may not know how to swim in those circumstances and situations that play out as experiences down here that you may be unfamiliar with when it plays out in your life in the third dimensional realm. So this develops as a substance of fear, because now that we start to have fear, we're utilizing our own spiritual strengths. And what are your spiritual powers? Faith, belief, and creativity. Creativity is tied to imagination or self-delusion, or imagination or illusions. So keep that in mind. But as spirits, we are all creative as gods and goddesses. And with this creativity, it can lead into an illusion or an imagination or a nightmare. Now, it's based on our belief on that creativity, on that imagination. And then once we believe that, we got to have faith that it's actually true. And this is how you create a blood cell. And this is how you manifest your circumstances and situations in your life, utilizing your thought forms and your feelings. And as a spirit, you create these thought forms and feelings based upon faith, belief, and imagination. You have an idea about something. Then you start to imagine that idea, and then you start to believe it. Then once you start to believe it, you believe that lie as a beehive that you lie in. And therefore, you have faith that it's going to become a prophecy or it's going to come to be. So when you think about the shadow government, or when you think about religion or how they got y'all lost into the world, this is kind of a magic square how they got y'all in based upon mentally. So you see what I'm saying? So they have y'all placing y'all imagination on their ideas and thoughts about things. Then it's up to you to actually believe it. And then you're going to start to have faith that that's going to actually be the outcome. So for the most part, if they got you wrapped into something that they make you feel like you shouldn't do, then for the most part, it's going to lead you into having mind control or being in fear. But we're going to break it back down on the third dimensional level so we can have it on all levels of people's lives and their experiences. Now, when you're dealing with fear, 9 times out of 10, it's you utilizing your 3 spiritual strengths for an experience or a scenario that have yet to happen. So this is when we see our own spiritual strengths and capabilities and incapabilities. You can have a strong imagination, strong beliefs, and strong faith in that belief that imagination will come true. So you need to make sure that you're not indulging into attaching your mentalities, feelings, and emotions on nightmares. But at the same time, you might be wanting to go through with something, a circumstance or a situation. And for the most part, you start to use your spiritual strengths. You start to imagine that circumstance, believe that circumstance, then have faith that actually will be the conclusion or the outcome of that circumstance. And based upon this low vibrational world that we are in, you may even have a lot of examples of spirits that's in bodies that was already in that space. So they already have experienced, and you are able to look at their outcomes. And you are able to sit back and assess your imagination on how the outcome may play out for you. So you already got a structured belief based upon what you have experienced outside of you. That's why I say be careful watching the news channels and things of that nature, because these are illusions, propagandas, and themes. Same way when we want to talk about QAnon and or Chas or Chop. Fox News and the Republican Party funded Chaz and Chop. And then whatever that they did to shut down Chaz and Chop was just a representation of whoever not a part of that and wants to do that on their own. Chaz and Chop is an example of what we're going to do to you. So keep that in mind also. And that's how they rock it. So you might have fear of not doing something based upon what was presented on a news channel, thinking that actual people really went through that, not knowing that that was an actual theme that was actually set up for you to react and respond in that manner. And now that's a form of mind control without the government, without the shadow government having to come knock on each individual's door one by one to tell you to move. Especially if you have a bunch of disagreeable people who are more lost into their own life. And if their own life is backed and supported by the magic square and the security and having a job and insurance and shit like that they already got you wrapped in, of course they're not going to come knock door to door and argue with you about why you need something that they created for you in the first place for you to feel secure in your life. So, they do reverse psychology on a broad level and utilize their puppets and their politicians in order to cause reactions and responses from the people to make y'all think that you're supposed to react or respond to certain things in certain ways. So you think you're supposed to react in a protesting way. You think that we're under a meteorite coming and we should fear that. You think you have a Messiah or something coming back, so this is something you need to fear. But you need to know that all of these are equalized in the equilibrium perspective of fear. So whatever polar shift that you're on, make sure you're clearly looking at this polar shift. Whether it make you feel positive to go towards this because you don't want something to happen to you in this life or afterlife or or life after death, or you're in something that you don't want to do. You know what I'm saying? Because of what may happen to you in this lifetime. It doesn't matter what polar shift is on. It's back to supported by a form of fear. And fear is a form of a agenda or a tactic that's utilized as a psyop. So you need to keep that in mind also. So whatever linguistics, language, books, writings, religions, people in your life that try to make you be aware of something so they can see your point of view. But the way that they do it is back to supported by you have to fear something. Do you need to know that spirit is a weak spirit or a demonic spirit and have to utilize witchcraft and manipulation from the spiritual realm behind closed doors in order to manipulate the situation that's in front of them, that's externalized via person, place, or thing. So in order to make somebody do something that you need them to do, there has to be something that has to be feared involved. Whether we have to fear that the bill's not going to be paid, whether we have to fear that I'm going to divorce you, whether we have to fear that we're going to go to another body after death to burn in hell forever, or whatever kind of concept that you're lost in, if it's back to supported by someone saying you have to do things in this order because of fear, this may happen, 9 times out of 10, that's back to supported by witchcraft. Otherwise, there should be no kind of energy that make you fear anything, not even death. So you're not enlightened. You just maybe think you were elected in some way, shape, or form, or you're a Calvinist. But that's a whole nother video. But getting into fear, for all of us to deal with our fear, you may be somewhere sitting around developing thought forms and feelings of something that haven't even happened yet. And based upon how low vibrational you are, you probably have took the time to get into your left brain to calculate all the examples on outcomes of individuals that have already been in that space of what have happened. So you spent way more time not doing and analyzing a situation that you're not even experiencing yourself. So of course your mind is always going to find whatever it's paying attention to. And if you're trying to pay attention to a whole bunch of outcomes and conclusions from different people's perspectives, then that's what you're going to find. And then you're going to find an excuse on why you shouldn't do it in some way, shape, or form. Whether you start to look at that excuse as, yeah, I'm glad I came to this conclusion because I was getting ready to make a mistake. Or you came to that conclusion as a form of you just feeling insecure in yourself and you need other examples as instructions in order for you to have enough courage to do whatever you need to do. But whatever the magnitude is, you need to know that it's all rooted and supported by you're sitting back utilizing your spiritual strength. And depending on if you're a super powerful spirit, you're going to have grander imaginations. You're going to have big beliefs. You're going to have a large faith. So whatever that you're paying attention to, you're going to have a big imagination about it. You may believe it very deeply. And then for the most part, you may have real faith that that's going to actually be the outcome. And you may even find examples of people who have already been in that space that lead to showing you that you're sure, and as confirmation that, yeah, that'll happen to me if I do that also. Not knowing that you're on your own path. See, this is getting into the area of being a spiritual child, or this is another example of you being a spirit, but being very new to this area. So this your first couple times here. You haven't been here a lot. So you don't have no subconscious familiarity of why you're not scared of something that you're just enduring and is very new to you, but you automatically can get over it faster than someone else. That's a deep-rooted subconscious example of you may have endured something similar to that experience before, and during this lifetime, it's not as impactful to you as it was previously, so you are more aware in that area. You see what I'm saying? Now, when it comes into a situation where you fear everything is attacking you, everything is religious, everything, that lets you know that you are a childlike spirit. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, your faith is going to be very big, your belief going to be very big, and your imagination going to be very big, because that's like a child that just created an organ here. That's like somebody just now discovering something that they didn't know. They want to let the whole world know that they with this person now. They want to let the whole world know that they got this curriculum information now, or this science or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And it started to develop into having more knowledge than wisdom. So you are unwise on how to actually utilize the knowledge that you have, because you're too happy of the knowledge, not being wise enough to know how to correlate it, because you haven't experienced it yourself. And this also could develop into people who are teachers that's charlatans, and preachers that manipulate and utilize shapes and forms and statuses for the sake of, this is a representation of where my spirit is at. And that's rapid spirituality with materialism in some way, shape, or form. But like I said, once we start to talk about the fear, this put you in a situation where you're looking at something that you have not been in yet. You're looking at an experience that you have not participated in yet. You're looking at a group of people, places, and things that you're not a part of yet. And you're acting in the judging energy before you have experience to know what was the right things to judge or not. So for the most part, you're putting yourself into a cast in stone energy that shall not be casted. And it's kind of like blasphemy against yourself, because you end up limiting your own mind state, feelings, and emotions and physical experiences within your life, and lack of manifestations. So once you start to talk about the actual energy of you fearing, you may be in a circumstance where you're developing too many thoughts, feelings. You're developing too much faith, belief, and imagination behind something that you haven't even experienced to know if that was actually going to be the outcome. And me making an example of you being a spiritual child, or you needing a spiritual crutch, or just being a very few times, or your first time being in this realm of reality, is because you can look at the examples of kids. This is why kids, for the most part, even if it's an old spirit in that child, but for the most part, the membrane that they're utilizing before it gets older for them to know their power, right? This is why majority of the time your kid is afraid of scary movies and things of that nature, when you're an adult and you're not scared. You know why? Because the spirit is still pure within the realm of reality that it's in when it's a child. So they still got big imagination, big beliefs, big faith. So when they see imageries put out by Walt Disney, or when they hear stories or pick up frequency vibrations of you having conversations with your child, trying to make them fear something that's unknown, you need to know that they're not going to necessarily fear your God. They're going to actually take that fear energy and pinpoint it to anything that's an authority to them. So they may have an unnecessary fear about their boss or their manager, or about the government in the world, just based upon how you taught them to fear the God you worship. So you have to be careful of that also when you're teaching your children things. You can emotionally scar them to when they get older. It might build a resentment towards you, and your child might become your worst enemy, because once they start to endure actual life and start to experience that your morals is not actually helping them flourish in life, that other things that they desire, then for the most part, you're going to start to get all the backlash based upon the bullshit that you rocked your kids to sleep with. But that's another video. So like I said, getting into actual fear, right? You could be in a circumstance where, like a kid will see an imagery from a movie that look like a clown or a monster or something like that. A kid already got a big imagination. You give them an image for them to imagine and ponder on. So now a kid already going to believe that. A kid going to believe that's actually a monster, because they still spiritually young. And then for the most part, once they believe it, they got faith that that's actually going to jump through the screen, or it's actually going to come true. So they tie their emotional Eve to their Adam, their thought form, their masculine energy. And then therefore they justify why it's actually real. So the imageries in their head actually become real. So they end up, so you can see adults who played this energy, like spiritual kids who need mental crutches because they lack conscious awareness and instability in life. You can see this played out in spirits that's in adult bodies. Now, I'm not even saying these are real figures, but you can look at people like Peter, Paul. They had visions. So that was like the first form of New Agers. They brought some new shit to an area that they wasn't supposed to bring it in. So for the most part, it was like some New Age shit, right? And then they seen visions. And then they believed they vision. So this like you having an image and you being so emotionally connected to that image is real to you, though, because it's still a vision. So it become real to you. So it's something that you feel, it's something that you fear internally with you. So you fear your own demons and angels. You fear your own visions. And then you're trying to push that onto others. So this is one of the concepts of why they even killed Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Which Jesus is not a figure, but it's trying to give you the understanding that people who think in that way, this is why Jesus was killed. So you have to look at it as, let's say I'm Jesus, right? And let's say I come to a city that everybody is in, that's running, right? And let's say my way of thinking is confusing people and cloudy in people's head. Let's say I'm Jesus and my way of thinking is cloudy in people's head in that city, right? Here's the thing. I'm starting to get followers now, right? So all the followers is almost like people sinning because they're following something, right? So for the most part, now here's where Pontius Pilate come in, right? They're going to crucify Jesus, and this is why Jesus died for your sins. This is why Jesus died for you to live, because if Jesus didn't die, all y'all would be corrupted. So in order for all y'all won't be corrupted, Jesus had to die. So Jesus died for you to live. Jesus shed blood for you to live. Jesus died for your sins, because if Jesus was still alive, you would still be sinning. You would still be following. So Jesus died for the people. That's what it means. See, people get lost into Latin and grammatics and shit like that. So they don't understand the concept of the story because they're trying to anthropomorphize something, or they're trying to look at it as far as a hero, not understanding that it's saying Jesus died for you. So it's basically saying, if I was Jesus and I come corrupting y'all city, they killed me for you. They killed me for you to live. Because if they ain't killed me, you would have continued acting like me, and they would have had to kill you too. They would have had to chop your head off too. So when you worship the cross, you worship the government and the law structure that killed Jesus. When you go to a church, you worship the house that Jesus died for, because he went against the original law of the land and led people to damnation. See what I'm saying? So that's what it's basically saying. But you might get lost into King James or some things of that nature and not understand the concept of fear and being lost in fear in some way, shape, or form. So when you're lost in fear, right, you're responsible for the place that, or the position that you put yourself in because you feared. And when you lead others to fear, you have blood on your hands. So blood has to be shed, and you will put blood on other people's hand. You will tell them to stick their hand in your side. You see what I'm saying? Then you will be exalted. People will remember how you died. AKA, people wouldn't want to die in that fashion anymore. All the way to Peter or Paul wanted to die upside down. Now, I'm not saying these are real individuals. I'm speaking as symbology, cryptography, geomancy. You see what I'm saying? So it's basically saying it was a sacrifice. So it was a sacrifice for you not to fear, because following that, this is where fear leads you in some way, shape, or form. So keep that in mind. It leads you into damnation. So it's saying don't fear. So if you hear something saying, don't fear anything but the Lord or something like that, that's witchcraft. Because the Lord is your light, thy light. So when you call your spirit a name, that's blasphemy. So here's where we get into the concept of maybe people might get things confused because of exoteric, aka things that's common knowledge. So if you like a common religious person, let's say you into Christianity, 9 times out of 10, you're into the exoteric, the EXO version of it. So you are the Satan because you disregard Jesus' actual teachings. Jesus said, go within. The moment you externalize everything and feel like your God is not inside of you, you have to go external. You have to go outside of you. And these deities and these figures are outside of you. You have got practice. You have got practice Greek and Hebrew witchcraft on. When these actual books that you're reading that's practicing witchcraft on you, because these authors believe in witchcraft, that's why they're doing it. Your book was made by a Mason. That's why you have to understand star numbers and calculus, so you can understand how the Bible is made. So you'll understand that it's not that Masons and Jesuits took and Catholicism corrupted the Bible. No, they made the Bible. See what I'm saying? So you have to understand from a concept where it's actually telling you that these are the things not to actually do within these structures of the Bible and things of that nature. So keep that in mind also. So when you see your Lord, when you look at exoteric, right? The moment you see a Protestant or a Christian or Islam and they're reading text that's telling them God is within you and you're supposed to go inside, yet their whole form of doing it is worshiping idols. The word, the book. We all know this is manifested from the vibration. Then the word became flesh and blood plasma. And you know that came from the light. Light get externalized from the vibration. So it's trying to make your spirit believe you the light based upon Holy Ghost. Holy means separate. This is another video though. But like I said, right, trying to make you separate yourself and following something to make you think that you need to be connected with that in order to be whole, where that was the first demon. So it's a demon concept letting you know that this demons like to be called God. So here's where we get rulership and authority and bloodlines who, when they got that idea, they come down here, create pillars and buildings and bridges, and then they make the slaves build it because they had the ideology of witchcraft to convince people that this is the right thing to do, and they know how to put value behind something to make people think that this is what matters for forms of security. So this is why you don't know how to own a building, but this is why you work and build a building and think that you're doing good in your life based upon your insurance that they gave you, why they sit up on the top floor of the building not spending a dime. You see what I'm saying? That's another video. But like I said, once we start to talk about the consideration of your books and your light, once you start to get into exoteric, you have casted blasphemy on yourself because you're reading a book that's telling you to go within, but your whole concept of understanding that is now you using this book for debates. And nobody told you to actually utilize this book for an authority to cast stones on others like their God is wrong and yours is false. And that's the blind leading the blind in the first place, being a preacher and exalting yourself like you are ascending like Jupiter, and you wanting to be seen as the person who actually got the right word and thinking other people who don't. So you're going to hell. But for the most part, like I said, you're lost in words, but it's taking you into a circumstance, right, where you're lost into something that's telling you clear as day, go within, but you don't believe you need to go within, so you don't got your own charismatic gifts, and you're lost into exoteric. You look at all these deities that teach you these things externally, where it's a book that's telling you that you're teaching yourself these things. Esoteric, ESO, things that once you internally are enlightened, you become elected. Once you become religious or a Calvinist, you turn enlightenment into elected, and then you have no means to explain why God has your morals. So you're just like being a Calvinist, basically. You're coming up in your own mind on why you think God has an elected few people that God. So you're coming up with decisions that you think God have already made that's beyond your reasoning and things of that nature for the most part. And then you're utilizing the book to confirm that. And the book is created by the very people that you saying that don't got the right word, which is the Catholic Church, because Jesus found the Catholic Church. The people who built the Catholic Church built the cross on top of the pillar and on the right position for the sun to go through it once the sun start to go to 6 p.m. and we start to get evening of the day. That wasn't during John Calvin church. John Calvin went against the church and thought the cross and something else means something else other than the monad. And here's where we get anthropomorphizing things of that nature and not understanding that we supposed to kill Jesus because Jesus represents the desires. So when you do too much love, too much passion, too much debating, too much loss into the word and things of that nature, you're not killing a desire. So you think you're going into that fire forever as a spirit. So that's hell, but they made you think it's a heaven because you don't know no better because they've been chopping y'all heads off for all these years. That's another video. But like I said, get into fear. Anytime that you're utilizing a circumstance where you're coming up with your own imagination, faith, and belief about something that you haven't even jumped in and experienced yet, and depending on how deep and low vibrational you have dived into it, you have probably got a collection of examples in your mind on how these things could go. So it just leaves you stuck into a south node or a routine or pattern or a circumstance that you may be stuck in that you can't get out of. And then you create a hell for yourself, aka lost in fear, and fear become your God. And when you die, that fear play out as a shape and form and an image that look just like you. And you actually go see that demon and you actually get reminded on why you separated yourself in the first place, because you have some own internal characteristics and personality traits that's very fucked up. And for the most part, the shadow government, they create a whole bunch of denominations so they can see what group of people fit these personality traits. And while y'all thinking that it's not your personality trait, it's something that you're worshiping. Yeah, you're worshiping another man's or woman's ideology and broad philosophical point of view about the world. So they utilize psychology on you because they know that you dumb, deaf, blind, sheep, and weak. And you're not enlightened because you pop up on the internet or you pop up at your church every day and preach these things. Flight boss, bitch, goddamn air. And I love y'all from the bottom of my heart. And you know what I'm saying? And for the most part, I don't want nobody getting lost in fear of some things that another spirit wants you to be aware of because they want some power. And this is what a demon is on a broader scale. Make you worship or praise it time after time after time, so it can maintain a position that it's in some way, shape, or form. So it needs your energy. It needs your praise. It needs your worship. Now think about egotistical people or narcissists in the world. And then think about the spirit that you follow. So are you going to continue doing that in the spirit realm also? Or are you going to allow Greeks or Hebrews to tell you that no, it's the wrong thing to do that down here in the physical realm, but that's the right thing to do in the spiritual realm? That's the first class ticket to hell, and that's why you in a body in the first place right now to even come up with that dumbass shit. Flight boss, bitch.